Now, will we start with Waterford against Dublin?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that just because it was, one of the most recent games as well, and you can say what you like about league games and maybe the lack of importance or the lack of jeopardy or whatever, but there's a fair crew down in Frater Field the other day, and they got their money's worth, in fairness.
Yeah, so it finished Waterford 2-19, Dublin 3-16, and Waterford were down to 13 men for the last 10 minutes plus injury time, which I think turned out to be an extra 6 or 7 minutes on top of that. So if you're Davy Fitz, you're pretty pleased that your team showed the character to be able to absorb a two-man loss and still get a draw from the game, because they were losing when they went down to both 14 men. I think they went down by a point at that stage. And then once Stephen Bennett got the second yellow card, they were still down by a point. So that was very good to win the rest of the game, despite being down by two men. I think it's very poor for Dublin not to be able to see the game out. And Darragh O'Flynn, who does an awful lot of the work and research for us, he was at this game, and Dublin went 1-5-0 behind. And straight away, Darragh was saying, I thought the warm-up was just very, very static. Waterford were absolutely flying around the place. Dublin was very much kind of stationary, static drills. And he kind of wondered if that kind of led to a bit of a slow start in the game. And I mean, obviously they got going eventually, but do you think that like a really lax warm-up, as it seems to be in this case, neither you nor I saw it, so we're not speaking firsthand on this, but like, do you think that could explain going 1-5-0 behind early on?
Depends. I think it's something you have to see with your own eyes, and maybe you don't know potentially how long they were out on the pitch and what they had done maybe before they went to the pitch. I remember being over the Borough under-21s with Barry Whelan one time. We were playing a quarter-final, and it was monsoon outside. We had them ready inside, and they were literally out in the field 4 minutes, I'd say, before the match. So if anyone said, "Oh, Borough only warmed up for 4 minutes," but mentally they were ready to go and we won the game or whatever. So I think listen, you need to be up to a certain pitch. I always like to have a blow before a match. Like, you'd like to have the second win got. But different players are different, and we don't know exactly how much they've done, but the slow start would definitely maybe suggest that they weren't at full tilt, and by the sounds of things, it sounds like Waterford definitely were at full tilt the other end.
Yeah, I suppose like the red cards, I think Stephen Bennett, he obviously didn't, it wasn't the worst slap in the world, but it did merit a red card. He has to go for that. And then Jack Fagan, it's a second yellow card at that stage, so I don't think he can have any complaints either. By the way, what a catch from Keane Boland for the high ball that went in. That was brilliant stuff. And some of the other, like the penalty early in the game, Paddy Doyle pulled back a Waterford player. I suppose, yeah, that was a penalty as well. And do you know what? Jamie Barron playing a full game. We were kind of just chatting beforehand. Now, we haven't had a chance to go through all the games, but that's probably his first full 70-minute game since 2021, whenever they lost to Limerick, isn't it?
In or around, he definitely played that full semi-final against Limerick. He ended up in the full forward line after, and I'd say that was, how well he did in there, and his ability to play that different type of role is probably, partly due to why Davy maybe is looking at him in a different area and around the half forward line or drifting out into midfield, but not necessarily been one of the two midfielders that are always there. Yeah, he's had a good few little bits and pieces that have kind of held him back, particularly last year. Like, when he's fit and flying, to me, there's nearly no one better in around the middle of the field. I think if you were building a midfield, you'd have Jamie Byrne and Will O'Donoghue to complement each other. Like, what a compliment they would be to each other. One lad who's, the real enforcer, maybe doesn't get forward and score that much, whereas Byrne does and gets forward and chips in 3 or 4. Just on a couple of points he made there, the Jack Fagan pullback was 100%, what it was. Will they be pulled in championship this year if they happen? We saw kind of nearly different rules enforced in league and championship last year. Even I'm seeing with the hand pass, I was down at Tippenish the other night. To me, it didn't look like they were enforcing the throw like they were last year. And then I saw in other games where they were kind of enforcing it. So just interesting to see whether it's going to be refereed differently from league to championship again. I don't think Stephen Bennett can have too much of an issue, really. Kind of did swing back, and it did look like he landed a bit of a punch. And that's a bit of a disaster for him now. It's a bit of a disaster for a lot of fantasy hurling teams as well, because we suffered the points of a red card been sent off, and him obviously missing, what's he going to miss, 1 game now anyway, at least. So a bit of a disaster. And he's joint captain for Waterford as well. You want to get a run of games. So disappointing from his point of view. But listen, if you do the crime, you're going to have to suffer the punishment that you get from it.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to do the Fantasy Hurling League?
I did indeed. I was late in the day. I came in around if it closed at 1:00, I was in at 12:45. I haven't got a chance to add myself to the OurGame League yet, but I'd say I got around 240 or so. I'd say I'm safe to say I'm probably ahead of you for week 1 anyway.
No, I got 251.
Oh my God! Okay. Well,
Yeah.
listen, I'll jump into the OurGame one when I pass you out, maybe at the end of this weekend.
Do you know? And I knew it was going to be a masterstroke putting Seamus Kennedy in because he's lined out as a back in it, and he got 27 points over the weekend. Jeez, Davy Fitzgerald got 32. Billy Drennan 46. Jesus, Caleb Lyons -1. Damn you, Caleb.
That's a bit of a killer. Had you Davy Fitzgerald in as well? Because he's down as a wing back. There's always one or two that you can find that have maybe changed positions this year. Kennedy been one case in point that, if he scores a point, even as a wing back, but he's playing in the forward line, they're worth huge points. That's why I've kind of changed my tack a small bit. I don't go for as many free takers now. I go for maybe 3 forwards that will, chip in 2 or 3 from play and not hit any frees, and then maybe 2 or 3 really reliable free takers like Stephen Bennett and Donald Burke, etc.
Yeah, I put in Keane Kenny as another one now. He's named.
Yeah,
I see him centre forward.
He had a goal chance. Saved actually. In the early minutes of the first half. I was only watching it back last night, but I would have expected him to be on the score sheet at centre forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was disappointed with that now. Just by the way, for Waterford, Stephen Bennett scored 2-7. That was all place balls. Austin Gleeson came off the bench. He hit 3 of those frees. Michael Kiley got a couple, as did Tom Byrne and Jamie Byrne. For Dublin, Donald Burke scored 1-7. 5 of those was from place balls. By the way, the way he does this thing of hanging out at right on the sideline, pretty much in midfield, and just someone hands him the ball and he just turns and pops it over, and every point kind of looks the same. As I was watching it the other day, even though he only scored 2 points, I was like, this is real Billy Dooley stuff here. He just hangs out at the sideline and just pops it over the bar.
Billy like that, where after scoring 3 replica points at the end of 94 in Ireland, he was hardly able to breathe at the end. I was actually just watching Donald Burke the last 2 days he played. Is there a case in point for, a more man-markable person? I'll put it to you that way. If you give him, he just kind of, as you say, he slips away, drifts away. If he gets that half a yard, he leans back, he scores from anywhere inside 100 yards. He literally needs somebody to follow him the whole time, or he can just do that sort of damage at will.
Yeah, Keane O'Sullivan scored a couple of goals. Really nice finishes, especially the first one. Connor Prunty was soloing out with the ball and misplaced pass. That can happen. Obviously, teams are trying to work it out from the back, so it's just not going to be perfect all the time. But the way he soloed, was about to give the hand pass initially, held on to it a little bit more, quick 1-2 with Alex Considine and finished nicely. And then his turn for the other goal, I think there was a little bit of a slip from Conor Gleeson, but he was very much hot on Keane O'Sullivan's heels. But O'Sullivan sort of shaped one way, then the other, went the other and lashed it into the net. So that was a very good finish. And Keane Boland, who got man of the match, he hit 3 points. Alex Considine hit 2. So let us know who you think was played particularly well that over the weekend.
Can I just say to you, Shane, a Keane Boland, if you look at a forward, and just off the top of my head, I'm not going to put them in any particular order, but if you have, would say, Donald Burke, Keane Boland, Alex Considine, we'll say Danny Sutcliffe, Keane O'Sullivan. That's just 5 out of 6, and just off the top of my head. But they're all different.
Ronan Hayes.
Ronan Hayes. They're all different types of players. And you'd say in Considine, Hayes, and Sutcliffe, you've 3 guys who are, probably 6'2" minimum, bulky players, and well able to win their own ball, and then maybe a couple of silky players with them. There's a decent balance to that, and I think that's what Dublin are craving. And the kind of Considine could be from what we've seen at club form even the last couple of years, he could be a big player for Dublin, particularly with some of the bulkier players maybe that they're missing this year. But they need that balance in the forward line. And I think in one way I'm thinking Micheál Donoghue will be disappointed to not get a victory. And then you're thinking they're 1-5 to no score down. They're missing, 10 players from last year, 6 or 7 really, really big players. I think he would have taken your arm off for a draw before the fixture was made. So I think he would have before. Like, circumstances change maybe mid game and that. But I think they'll be happy enough that a few new faces stood up, because then they're going to need a lot of new faces to stand up this year.
Yeah, Asolly 180 says Dara Gray should have been sin bin, but he didn't pull the player to the ground. So I like, as in, he didn't drag him all the way down to the ground. He certainly did foul him, and I think another player came in and gave a hit as well. TV Street says a relatively unknown Dublin team gave plenty of bother to Davy. Dublin's fitness and pace were very decent, a little better from range, and they'd be dangerous. If Dublin can entice 1 or 2 back into the squad, they'll have a chance of getting out of Leinster. Is Davy the man to solve Waterford's discipline issues? Do you see it as a discipline issue? I suppose it was lashing out a little bit from Stephen Bennett. I mean, he has to be cuter than that. Who's the furball who matches Verney for hair behind him?
Yeah, my wife was just left for work, so this lady is making all sorts of noises there. I had to mute there for a minute. Was there a show last week or the week before where you could just hear her trying to get out the door? Just on Dublin as well, they still have that, they still have really, really good spine as well. I know maybe Shane O'Donnell maybe shouldn't be taking those as many long shots as he was, but he did get one, I think, when it was key, when there were 2 down at the end. Dara Gray's a really good player. Conor Burke's probably as good a player on the ball as there is in the country, and he always tends to do the right thing with it. So there's still the nucleus there to work with. And from a Dublin player's point of view, I'm sure they're thinking, and this is no slight on any previous managers or anything like that, but I'm sure they're really buying into what Micheál is selling, in the sense of they have an All-Ireland winning manager coming to town, and I'm sure what himself and Franny Ford and Noel Larkin are selling, I'm sure all the boys are buying, and they're really buying into it.